to the first live event of Live and Local's Big Picture Festival taking place in Warwick. Live and Local are a rural touring organisation, so we put on quality shows in towns and in rural areas, sometimes very rural areas, but we want to take professional work, films and live shows out into different areas and literally on people's doorsteps. So that's what we're about. This event, this Q&A, is from our film festival, and we had a competition for local filmmakers to send us their work in. We have some amazing quality films and they can be viewed on our website until the 5th of December. So we've got quite a bit of time to watch them yet, and I'm really pleased today to be joined by Brian Harley, who was our first place filmmaker, and Cassiah Joski-Jethi, who was our second place, and it was really high quality, so I'm so excited to have you with us today. It's really lovely to meet the people behind these incredible films. I'll run through your bios just in case people haven't come across you before and want to know a bit more. So, Brian Harley is an award-winning filmmaker and founder of Short Night Films. With a background of fine art, Brian has written and directed several acclaimed short films. He's been mentored by BAFTA-winning film and television producer Neera Park as part of a mentoring scheme funded by Creative England and the British Film Institute. Brian is the current programmer and host of non-profit film night Route to Shoots and the co-founder of Title Rouge Film Festival. Currently, Brian works as the marketing and outreach coordinator for Cinecov on behalf of Flatpack Festival. He is also the current industry advisor for the BA FDA in digital film production and media and communications at Warwickshire College. In 2020, Brian completed his first feature film, the documentary Neolation, and we might be able to talk about that a little bit later. And I've also got with me the lovely Cassiah. Cassiah Joski-Jethi is an award-winning writer, director, represented by Curtis Brown, who graduated from the University of Birmingham Drama and Theatre Arts programme in 2014. Excellent university choice, may I say. I also got my degree from there. She began her career working for Gurinder Chadha OBE after a chance meeting on a train, and soon after, Cassiah's debut award-nominated play Under My Thumb toured across the UK, ending in a 5-star reviewed run at the Edinburgh Fringe 2017, and her play London with a Perfect Skyline previewed in London in 2019. Her screen work has been awarded in the Westfield Screenwriting Awards, BBC Script Room Drama and Moondance International Film Festival. She has directed 4 short films which are screened across the UK and internationally, and her next short is a BFI network film, Catch a Butcher, premiering at the BAFTA qualifying Cambridge Film Festival. Cassiah also works extensively as a screenwriter, having a number of other film and TV projects in varying stages of development. So we are basically joined by film royalty from the Warwickshire and the West Midlands today, and it's really lovely. I'm Emily from Live and Local. I'm our programme administrator and do poetry and other things on the side, but today I am interviewing you all about your films. So, our festival theme this year is Small Voices, Big Impact, and without giving anything away, because people might not have watched them yet, it's the first day of our festival, how does your film fit into the theme? I'll come to Brian first and then Cassiah.
Okay, that was really strange hearing the bio read out. Like, it makes you realise how much you've done over the years. Yeah. When I saw the theme, I kind of had a quick sort of scan of my work, and I thought there was a film that sort of skewered that theme quite well. And I thought, well, let's see if they feel the same way. I think this film empowers people who are not usually in control of certain spaces, and that's why I felt that the film would be a good match for the festival. Not only have they been empowered to take control of a particular space, they've actually changed it and transformed it, and I thought that sort of kind of matched the big impact element of the theme.
Because it's a community garden in Coventry, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I was trying to talk in abstract then, but yeah, it's an allotment turned into a community garden, a derelict allotment, I should say, that was just lost. Nature had reclaimed it. It went from a highly manicured allotment, you know, in the 50s, 60s to just, you know, wasteland. So the change was very apparent, and it was great to sort of be there to document that, even in a short space of time. I think that we filmed for 4 weeks, and that was quite a substantial slice of the development of the site.
Fantastic, thank you. I'll pass the same question over your way.
So I think my film focuses on a single protagonist, and I think that's the small voices. It's just this one character, and there's actually no dialogue in the film, but you see her sort of come into her own and feel empowered. I think that's where the big impact comes in. So yeah, that's how I thought it would fit in with the theme.
Absolutely. Do you want to expand a bit on the premise of your film?
Sure. So it's really a film that's an homage to fairy tales, and it's really about using the power of imagination to overcome adversity. In this instance, there's a suggestion that she's living in an abusive household, and just how the power of imagination is really strong and can kind of get you through those tough times.
Brilliant, thank you so much. I'd be interested to know how the idea for these films, because they're quite different. You've got a documentary working like very much in a community space, and Cassiah, yours is equally wonderful, but you know, fictional, and as you say, there's no speech throughout, which is obviously quite ironic with the word voices in, but it was so powerful. So I'll come to you first this time, Cassiah. How did the idea for this film come about?
I guess it came from a kind of cynical place. I wanted to make a film, a short film, but wanted it to be fairly simple to shoot, and you know, I knew that not having dialogue just made it easier, or I thought it would make it easier, but actually doing a short film with no dialogue, it really sort of works the actor quite hard, and you have to think about all the visuals as well and how that's going to convey the story. But I've always had a really big imagination, like ever since I was a young child, and I think that kind of got me through really hard times, and I wanted a film that kind of paid homage to that. And I love fairy tales, and I love sort of dark twists on fairy tales like Tim Burton films and things like that. So yeah, that's I think where the idea originated from, really.
Thank you. And Brian, so how did yours come? Did they come to you? Did you go to them? Or?
I was working for the pod in Coventry at the time, and I was doing lots of film work for some of the social activism projects that the pod manages.
Just for people, because obviously we all know Coventry is the greatest city in the world, but in case people aren't sure what the pod is, can you expand on that for us?
The pod, it's been through a lot of sort of change and evolution since I moved on, but it basically supports adults with severe and enduring mental ill health with their social recovery. With, you know, through the arts. There's a big emphasis on arts engagement and art practice as well. So it basically came to me to track the development of this allotment site that we'd acquired through one of the social activism projects. I've done documentary work before, like Cassiah. I've done lots of drama shorts as well, but I still had to employ sort of dramatic techniques. You know, it's not enough to shoot what happens and then hope that it kind of has any stakes all by itself. So you kind of find yourself marshalling what's happening into a sort of you know, a narrative lane, and it was quite refreshing, really, that most people, if not all people involved, were just said yes straight away. You know, like you still had to use your people skills and your negotiation skills and to build trust, because you're asking people quite a lot. You know, working with an actor who wants to be on camera is different to working with a non-actor, a resident of a community who's never even thought about being on camera, and then you're asking them to divulge their story. So like, you still find yourself directing, you're just directing in a bit of a different way, an agile way.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So you have this initial idea that you're already working within this community, you want to document this journey, if you like. Were you surprised how it evolved? Was the end product what you thought it would be?
Yes, it was. If that doesn't sound too sort of pig-headed, it was supposed to be a shorter project. It was supposed to be like 5 to 10 minute project, but the change that was that we were capturing over that 4-week period was quite significant, and I sort of pitched a longer film by showing the work in progress. So Christine at the pod was able to see that actually we needed to lay some tracks first and get people to understand what the current situation is, what the development tasks are, and what the end result is going to be. And I couldn't squeeze that into a 10-minute film without it just being a rush. So we agreed that we could sort of give it some breathing space and a bit of and enjoy it a little bit more, rather than sort of it just be rushed out and overlook lots of nuance.
Well, we're glad you did.
Thank you.
And Cassiah, because you said you had these ideas of what you wanted to capture. Again, how did that evolve for you? How did it change throughout the process when you're actually creating something?
I think when you shoot a film, you end up shooting generally more than you use. So it was really fun because I worked with a local actress called Alyssa Jardim, who's based in Warwick, and we shot at her house, and actually it was a really low-key fun shoot. We just kind of got to experiment, shoot a lot of different things. I worked with generally quite a new team of people behind the camera as well, and I think everyone just wanted to experiment and play around with it and see sort of what links to fairy tales we could put in, little nuggets. That's what I like about the film, is you can sort of see little sort of Easter eggs of different fairy tales coming through. So you can maybe watch it a few times and see different things every time you watch it. And in the edit is always where the film kind of evolves. When you read the script and see the final product, the structure's still there, but there are definitely scenes that have been cut out or changed, or the order of scenes have been flipped around a little bit. But that's, the natural process of filmmaking, and that's, in a certain way, I think as a director, you make it, but you kind of have to let it go at the same time and accept it's not necessarily going to be exactly the thing you had in your head, because it's collaboration at the end of the day of the actor and all the other creative team as well.
That's fantastic. Later on, what I am going to do is open it out for questions from our live audience here. So, if you want to get thinking of anything now that you might like to ask our filmmakers at the end, then please definitely do. It's more interesting if it's not just my questions. So you've talked a bit about that process. Is there anything that didn't go quite to plan, or what are the challenges when you're making a film like that?
I think mostly it comes down to having a small budget. We really stretched our resources, and in some ways you get to be a bit more creative, I think, when you don't have the budget, because you kind of think, oh, what can we do with clever camera work or something like that. But I remember the van turning up with all the equipment, and we always backed into this gate of the house that we were using, and I was like, oh my goodness, that would be a big disaster. But it didn't happen. But there's always little things like that when you don't have loads of security or anything like that. You're just going along with the day essentially, and what happens. Lots can go wrong, but you try and make it work. That's my kind of key phrase whenever I'm making anything, is we'll make it work.
That's a good life.
You kind of roll with it a bit, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and how about you, Brian?
With this film, it was fairly smooth process. Weather was a bit dicey because we were shooting outdoors. I think we shot it in spring, so we were okay for the most part, but there were occasions, which are depicted in the film, where it's been raining. So that did threaten the engagement with the project, or I thought it might, but as you'll see from the film, we were all very surprised when residents just put their raincoats on and came out still and got stuck in. So, but I can relate to what Cassie said about, the working with limited, low budgets, not being in complete control of the environment, indoors or outdoors. It is just always problem solving, and it is always a compromised vision, but sometimes you just have to let the project redirect you and it'll kind of be what it's supposed to be. And I think it's more sensible and more artistic to allow fortuity and spontaneity into the process, because if you're too rigid, the work's going to be rigid and people will sense that.
You've touched a little bit on the idea of space and working within the space. I know that you're both local to like Warwickshire and the West Midlands. Do you think that affects your work in any way? How does being here change what you create, or does it have no impact at all, would you say?
I think your work can offer a rare perspective that perhaps wider cinema audiences don't see. I guess the misconception more and more is that all films are made in London, and everybody's used to seeing London on the silver screen, and it always seems a bit of a novelty to see like a Warwickshire based production or a Lincolnshire based movie on the silver screen. So I think we can offer new perspectives, new cultural perspectives as well. Coventry is a multicultural city, and there's lots of stories to be told there, and I think given this year especially, it's a brilliant opportunity to tell those sort of varied stories and continue to tell the varied stories, because it's a designation for a year, but the city isn't going to change once the designation of City of Culture is complete. We're still going to be here, and I think that excites me, and I think there's more infrastructure in the Midlands that is to support filmmakers more than there used to be. It did used to be you have to go to London or Manchester to sort of get a career in the media. It's not strictly the case anymore.
Yeah, it feels a good time to be a filmmaker in the Midlands right now. Yeah, lovely. Cassiah?
Well, I've kind of adopted the Midlands as my sort of base, and I think it's just such a diverse landscape. It's got more rural parts, really interesting and diverse cities, and I've ended up just setting all my sort of pictures and stories in the Midlands. I think there's a real sort of cry out for commissioners at the moment who want more regional set stuff, and I think I've just tried to really run with that, and yeah, just look at all the different sorts of people and stories that are around this area. As I said, it's really diverse and interesting landscape, so it seems silly not to take advantage of it and yeah, put it in front of the camera for a change. You say any show set in the Midlands, the only thing most people can think of is Peaky Blinders, and actually a lot of that isn't even filmed in Birmingham, so yeah.
So yeah, you're doing it for the Midlands for us. It's great. It's brilliant. There should definitely be more Midlands on the TV and on the cinema. You said that you wanted in this film to play with the idea of fairy tales. Are there any particular themes that end up running through a lot of your work, or things that you like to raise awareness of? Or
yeah, something that comes in through my work sort of more recently has been this idea of dual heritage, because I'm sort of half Indian and half white, and I find that just a really interesting area to explore, and how that's presented, or one side of myself is sort of valued over the other, in terms of ethnicity and the sort of being white presenting, and all of that is very complex and very interesting to me. So I've started to explore that a bit more, but then also the projection of femininity, what it means to be a woman or to be feminine, and also looking at gender roles and subverting those a lot of the time as well. It's really all tied into identity, I think, is essentially what is at the root of all my work, and human questions around that, and who determines who we're meant to be. And in the case of Kindling, it's her determining who she wants to be, and how a part of herself, that imaginary part of herself, can help her propel and escape a situation she doesn't want to be in.
As a fan of books, I absolutely loved that and really related to it. And I think the work that you're creating is very relatable, and we can see ourselves, in your characters. Brian, had you worked with a community group in that way before?
Yeah, I guess my role at the pod was it was person to person. We were assigned citizens to work with as part of the service that we provided, but with our social activism projects, it did require us to get out into the community and connect people to the community. I've since went on to work as a community development officer for a rural project in Warwickshire, where it was all my responsibility to create cohesion in these sort of overlooked communities. So I felt like my filmmaking skills and my filmmaking experience assisted that community development work really well, because it's much like you're working with all sorts of different people, different backgrounds, different temperaments, different interests, different egos, and you're trying to find a middle ground. So yeah, I think that's been a real reciprocal kind of skill set, whether it's working in film or working in the community, and being able to blend them was quite a trick.
And what are the themes run through your fictional work as well as the documentary style?
I used to sort of know the answer to this straight away, but I did notice that reconciliation seems to be a recurring theme in my films. And it wasn't a conscious thing, but when I sort of looked at my body of work, after a while I could see that was always happening. And I sort of take some pride in that, because I think that's an important part of life. And if you can sort of show reconciliation in different forms through your work, then that's a good message to put out there. Dramatically, I like confinement, I like real time, I like to set myself a bit of a challenge with my film work. Almost play-like some of my short films is that, how do you make an evening between two people compelling for an audience? I think that challenges me as a writer, challenges me as a director, and so that's something that I've done a lot. I think as at this point in my sort of filmmaking, I'm trying to scale it up a bit now, try and look at more ambitious projects, but those smaller kind of personal themes are still there in the material. But yeah, family as well is another important theme that seems to sort of crop up in my work, but it was never a conscious thing, and it's just something that I noticed rather than sort of contrived it to be that way.
So maybe things that were important to you but ended up coming out in a creative way.
Yeah, you kind of express parts of your life through your art sometimes, and you could do it sort of noticeably if people know you or know about you, or you can do it in more abstract ways. And I think I've done a bit of both in my work, but not forgetting that the audience who's ultimately going to see it, you need to find a way of making it accessible for a general audience as well. And I think I've achieved that with some of my shorts.
I think you have, certainly with this, yeah.
Thank you.
It's gone all right, hasn't it?
Yeah, all right, thanks.
A lot of our audience will want to be supporting local sort of independent filmmakers like you. How can they best do that? So I'll go to Cassiah.
I think part of the support comes from people looking up work online and being able to follow your journey on social media, I suppose. So that helps build your profile. And because the film I made after that was much bigger budget, like 5 casts, we were working with babies, and that would have been almost impossible to do now, or would be very, very difficult, and the protocols and everything to shoot it would be that much harder. Whereas Kindling, I look back at it and I kind of could imagine it to be a pandemic film in a sense, and it's got that, you know, the themes of sort of being trapped and wanting to escape and just run away, and I feel like we can all relate to that during the pandemic lockdown. So yeah, you can sort of rewatch it and have the context of now and see it in a slightly different way, I think.
Thank you.
I guess my film depicts like people mingling and socialising together, and I hope that that doesn't become a taboo thing going forward. But I can see how people watching it through the prism of like the pandemic might think, oh, we can't do that anymore, or look how close they're standing next to each other, or look, they're sharing, you know, sort of that, you know, cutlery, or I think so there are, I guess, those things that you don't think about when you're in the moment making those films, because that threat isn't, you're not aware of that threat yet, become I don't know, they become more noticeable, and I suppose you would have to have cast a thought to that in making something new now, you know, whether that's a good thing or not. I think for drama it's like you find creative ways to do it, get around it, you know, one-man stories and limited locations, and you know, there's a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff that the audience will never see anyway, that you can do to sort of comply with sort of COVID-safe practice. So
make it work.
Yeah,
said earlier.
The documentary, I don't know, like, I guess you have to, it's a live kind of situation, so you have to sort of just be present and alert and mindful of what you're kind of putting on the screen. You know, you might worry about getting someone into trouble. So I guess, yeah, I just hope that social events don't become a taboo thing, or aren't looked on as a taboo thing in the future. I hope we can get back to
it's an
normality.
Interesting thought. I feel we could carry this conversation on for a lot longer than time is going to allow us to. We will finish with one final thought from you both. I would love to hear in one phrase or one sentence why people should bother today or over the next week to go on to our website and look and watch your film. Because they are all available. We've got lots of short films. We've got some amazing films here today in our venue, and also live across the week. I've got a full list here for everyone. So we've got Big Hero 6 at midday today, which is the Saturday. On the 28th, we've got Shoplifters. On the 1st of December, we've got Wadija. We've got Nomadland on that day as well, and we've got 3 Summers, which is an Australian film that's available throughout the week. So we've got lots going on online. Why should they tune into yours, Brian?
I guess my film is quite heartfelt and heartwarming, and if you want to watch something that is optimistic and productive and with a good soundtrack. There's a lot of local musicians that contributed to the soundtrack. So yeah, I would urge people to watch it if they want to feel good.
I think we all want to feel good, so yes, we'll go on and watch your film. Thank you, the Allotmenteers. We're going to show it here, obviously, in the venue after this Q&A. And Cassiah, why should they go and watch Kindling?
In a way, it's escapism, and I think actually all the films you mentioned and the fact that there's a film festival going on, films are about escapism. My film is really strongly about escapism and imagination, and that definitely gets us through tough times. I'm sure all of us in lockdown watched so many sort of films and TV and relied on reading or, you know, whatever it was. So yeah, if you want a good story, some escapism, and just, yeah, it is an uplifting ending as well. Not to ruin it, but it's uplifting.
That's
so
good.
It'd be nice to, yeah.
We need positivity. I have got no expense spared, 2 certificates for you to celebrate you being our winner and our runner-up for the 2021 Live and Local Big Picture Festival. So, ladies and gentlemen who are with us in the venue today, can we have a massive round of applause for Cassiah, Joski-Jethi and Brian Harley.